everybody. What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday, March the 5th, 2024, 7:09 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the Voiceman Studios in Toronto, Canada. This is episode 245 of McRae Live. It's not long enough. Yes, we got to do it again. A Nightmare on Elm Street. I am rocking my Freddy Krueger shirt today. What do you think? I'm rocking it. 40 years ago this year, Freddy Krueger was born, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most iconic horror villains of all time. It's still not long enough. Do it again. 40 years of Freddy Krueger. A Nightmare on Elm Street in 84, Elm Street 2 in 85, Elm Street 3 in 87, Elm Street 4 in 88, Elm Street 5 in 89, Freddy's Dead in 91, Wes Craven's New Nightmare in 94, Freddy vs. Jason in 2003. Oh my God. And then, of course, you also had Freddy's Nightmares, the television show in the 80s as well. We cannot forget that. Oh my goodness, Lee the Machine Bowers getting things started today. It's crazy what's going on. By the way, I'm working on getting little like effects and kind of like little sounds for when people send in like big super chats. I think that's going to be kind of fun, but I hadn't got that yet, but I'm working on it. I wish I had it today so I could do it for Lee, but don't worry, it eventually will happen for for everybody who wants to send in a huge one. A huge one. Get your mind out of the gutter, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, I thought that might be kind of fun. But yes, welcome to episode 245 of McRae Live. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. And, I thought, let's jump on. Let's talk about Freddy Krueger. Let's talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street. Let's pay honor. Let's pay respect. Let's tip our hats to the legend that is Robert Englund. Let's tip our hats to the legend that is Wes Craven, rest in peace, Heather Langenkamp, Nancy everybody who was involved in some sort of way in the Elm Street franchise, but certainly in that first movie way back in 1984. In 1984, I was 5 years old. I was born in 79. I was 5 years old. And I was a Fredhead. I think I may have got into Freddy Krueger. I know I've told these things before, but if I'm going to tell them again, this is the place to do it. I mean, we're celebrating the 40th year anniversary. I know that the movie, technically, its release date is much further into the year, but it is still the 40th anniversary this year. We can celebrate all year long if we want to, right? I mean, who's to say we can't? But yeah, I mean, it's just, I think Freddy was my gateway into horror. I mean, it was 40 years ago. It was hard, it's hard for me to sort of really remember in any great detail, but Freddy was huge. Freddy was huge, as was Jason Voorhees. And like I've said many times on this channel, Michael Myers, I mean, I hate to break it to you Halloween nuts out there, and I'm a Halloween nut, so please, I say it with love, but I hate to break it to you, to you Halloween nuts out there, but Michael Myers he ain't around. He wasn't around in the 80s. I'm not saying people didn't know who he was necessarily if you were a horror fan, but Michael Myers, I mean, listen, he had three movies in the 80s, and two of those movies were at the end of the decade when the golden age of slashers were long behind us. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, here you have Halloween 2 in 81, but there was no Michael Myers in 82, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, 6 years. There was 6 years there where Jason and Freddy were tearing it up in the pop culture zeitgeist. And, when you really think about the 80s, right? When you think of the 80s, because there's some bleed over, right? When decades transition, there's a little bit of bleed over. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, 1990, you can make an argument that 1990 still kind of feels like the 80s. Do you know what I mean? Because, well, it's 1990. Hairstyles, clothing, the 90s feel, like what we think of when we think of the 1990s. We don't really think of 1990. I mean, there's still, you know what I mean? I mean, you're just coming off of the 80s. There's a little bit of that bleed over. Same with 1980, 81. There's still a bit of that 70s bleed over. What we think of as the 80s, really kind of starts to take off when you hit like 83, 84, 85, 86, 87. Like that's, Back to the Future and Gremlins and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and, all that Beverly Hills Cop and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and the 80s and MTV and Michael Jackson Thriller and pop culture and all that great shit. All that great shit. But Michael was not existent, right? And so Freddy and Jason, I mean, that's why, they are the kings of the 1980s. Really, when it comes to horror, it's Freddy and Jason, Jason, Freddy. That is why there was a movie Freddy versus Jason and not Jason versus Michael. And I'm not ragging on Michael, but you know what? If it wasn't for Halloween, and as much as I'm not a big fan of Halloween H2O, if it wasn't for Halloween H2O and it landing at the right moment in 1998, it's entirely possible. I don't know where Michael would be today. Like, I'm not kidding. I mean, for better or worse. I mean, listen, Resurrection. Okay, I get it, right? Rob Zombie's films. I totally get it. But they, at least because of Halloween H2O was a critical success. It was a box office success. It landed right in 1998, right in the middle of the resurgence of the slasher subgenre. Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Scream 2, and I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, and Urban Legend, and I mean, all this great stuff, right? That late 90s sort of last push of the slasher subgenre, it landed in there. So it had all this weight and this tailwind and this momentum carrying it into sort of the, But if there had not been a Halloween movie in 1998, the last Halloween movie would have been Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers in 95, and nobody gave a shit about slashers in 95. I'm telling you, I was there. Nobody gave a shit. You were there, maybe. I mean, did you give a shit? Nobody gave. It wasn't a thing. The slasher subgenre was dead. And but it's crazy to think how far Halloween has come, and I think it's for better or worse, it's probably because of H2O, because to a certain generation, H2O was not only the first Halloween movie they saw in the movie theater, it was the first Halloween movie they may have even ever saw that got them into the franchise. So anyways, I digress. We're not here to talk about Halloween, but it's all connected. It's all interconnected. And but Freddy Krueger, man, I mean, when Elm Street came out in 1984, again, I was 5 years old. I remember vaguely, but I have older siblings, so I'm very fortunate that way to remember it. And it was huge. I mean, I remember going to school and, kids talking about Freddy Krueger and, oh my God, Freddy, and the finger knives. That's what kids would say, finger knives. Finger knives, and then you had the purists like me. Oh, it's a glove with knives on it. Shut up, McRae. But it's true. Kids would argue back and forth. Like I remember, I think I've told this before. There was this kid in my class named Jamie Hunt, and he was convinced that it was Jason Vanterhees. And I'm like, no, it's Jason Voorhees. He's like, my brother says it's Vanterhees. I'm like, well, your brother's an idiot. It's Voorhees. Of course, I was right. But those are the things kids back in the 80s were arguing about and talking about. Freddy and Jason, Jason and Freddy. And of course, when Freddy first came out, they didn't have those, the styrofoam hat with the mask and the glove with the plastic knives. I'm not sure what year that did come out, but I remember, I've told this before, I was a huge, Elm Street fan, obviously, and I remember taking a winter glove and taping Bic ballpoint pens to the glove. It was actually quite ingenious if you think about it. I was like 6 years old, and I didn't have I didn't have a sweater. I didn't have a fedora, so I used a plastic top hat from a magic set. Now we can laugh about that, and it is funny. I mean, absolutely funny when you look back on it, right? This little 6-year-old kid with this plastic top hat. But I always sort of sort of look back at that with fondness because it goes to show you the imagination of a child, right? To me, oh, no, that wasn't a plastic top hat from some random magic set. No. That was Freddy Krueger's fedora, and I could imagine, kids have an amazing imaginations, you know what I mean? And you really believed it, and I believed it. And I used to play with my next door neighbor, Johnny Steele, shout out to John, wherever he is. And I was Freddy and he would run away and I would and I had this big ball, but back in like 1984, 85, I mean, that's all we had. That's all we had, in 85, 86. I mean, the plastic glove and the mask, I think, was more of like a late 80s thing, maybe after Dream Warriors and onward, maybe. Although I stand to be corrected on that. But nonetheless, I also remember taking a piece of cardboard and actually tracing my hand and cutting out cardboard knives and taping them to a glove. I remember doing that too. And then wearing a cowboy hat, so I advanced from the Bic ballpoint pens on the winter glove to cardboard knives that look a little more pointed like knives. And I graduated from the top hat to the cowboy hat. I mean, I was working my way up. But back then that's all we had. We had to be inventive somehow, unless you had parents that had a fedora and the sweater. But nowadays, I mean, and I don't want to sound pretentious when I say this, but it's so true. Like if you are a kid today, you have no idea how lucky you are. Even going to, Spirit Halloween. I mean, even though the Tots Halloween masks, the Michael Myers masks, are not nearly as good as the independent Michael Myers masks that you will see created, because the Tots masks are mass produced. So there's only so much detail they can put in. It has to be sort of a one size fits all for everybody in terms of the, but they're still way better than anything you could have gotten in the 80s. Do you know what I mean? Even in the 90s, really. There's still light years ahead. So, I mean, it really is remarkable how lucky kids are today and how easily accessible. And because of the internet, you can trade masks, you can trade Freddy sweaters, you can buy Freddy gloves. I mean, it's wild to me. It's so incredible and pretty darn cool. But yeah, 40 years ago today, 40 years ago this year, A Nightmare on Elm Street was released, and he was the man. He was the GOAT. And Freddy Krueger, like I said, ruled the 80s. And when I talk about like horror legends and horror icons, right? I've talked about this before too. And there's that argument, there's some people that I'll just say this, that I think the word, I think words icon and legendary and GOAT are tossed around too loosely. I think when something today becomes really popular, you'll often see people, use the words like GOAT and icon and all that. And just because something is popular doesn't mean that they're iconic. Now, it can be a bit subjective, I guess. But for me, iconic, tends to be more about longevity and or a certain level of impact in a short period of time. And just because something or someone is popular doesn't mean that they're necessarily iconic. When we're talking about, Freddy and Jason, they're not just iconic, they defined a generation, right? They defined a decade. They defined a generation. I mean, they sit comfortably next to the DeLorean. They sit comfortably next to, a poster of Beverly Hills Cop. They sit comfortably, next to E.T. They sit comfortably next to the name Spielberg. When you look at a collage of pop culture from the 1980s, it's just a general collage of 80s pop culture. You will often see the hockey mask or the Freddy face or whatever the case is. You won't necessarily see Michael Myers. You won't necessarily see Michael Myers. And it's not a knock on Michael Myers. It's that there is an argument to be made. You can make the argument that Michael is not really an icon of the 80s necessarily. Yes, he had Halloween 2 in 1981, but he was absent for 6 years until Halloween 4 in 88 and then Halloween 5 in 89. And Halloween 5 was, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, Michael didn't really have the time or the movies to be able to embed himself into the 80s pop culture lexicon and, you know, or its iconic sort of zeitgeist. Now, usually people will lump Michael in with everybody just because he's so iconic anyway, in a general sense. Do you know what I mean? I mean, he is one of the greats. He's one of the GOATs. So people will usually lump him in anyway, just by default, because it's Michael Myers. But like I said, you can make an argument that he's not necessarily deserving as a label of an 80s icon necessarily, right? There is an argument to be made there. I'm just saying that. But Freddy and Jason, oh my God, they ruled the decade. You know, I mean, Jason, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88. I mean, you know, Freddy, 84, 85, 87, 88. I mean, 89. It was huge. I mean, between the two of them, there was what? You had part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think, and then Freddy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, I think between the two of them, you had like 12 or 13 films between Freddy and Jason in just the 80s. There were 3 Michael Myers movies in the 80s, right? So, you know, Freddy is legendary. And Robert Englund, of course, a relatively unknown actor. You know, I mean, people, and I say this too, because I think it's an important distinction to make. When people talk about an unknown actor, I think it's important that we remember that at least when the industry talks about unknown actor, they're not talking about an amateur actor or somebody with no experience. They're talking about an actor, obviously, who's a professional, who has experience, but hasn't been able to land a role or a gig or a job or a series or, you know, whatever the case is, that would propel their name into sort of the pop culture, not necessarily to iconic status. That's determined later in life. You know, you look back on it to see if, you know, but that's what all that means, is that it's not a household name. Robert Englund was very experienced. He was a character actor. He had bit parts in movies and TV shows. He was on V, which was very successful. But you could ask somebody, you know, in 1980 who Robert Englund was before A Nightmare on Elm Street, and they wouldn't know who the hell he was. They have no idea who he was. They'd be like, I don't know who Robert Englund is. So he wasn't a household name. But Elm Street helped to propel him into that stratosphere and make him a bit of a household name, at least in the horror genre. I mean, obviously, there's probably still a lot of people who have no idea who Robert Englund is and have never heard that name. But certainly in the horror space, yes, it propelled him to that stratosphere. And of course, Freddy changed over time. We know that, right? The first 2 movies, he was incredibly scary. My favorite version of Freddy is Elm Street 1 and Elm Street 2. And then if you want to even go further than that, my favorite Freddy is Freddy Krueger from Elm Street 2. I think he's the scariest Freddy. I think, Yeager's makeup is fantastic. I think it's the best makeup in the franchise. I think he looks the best in the franchise. I think he's the scariest in that movie. And that's not to say that he's not really scary in part 1, because he is. But that makeup that Kevin Yeager did was just unreal. And it's so unfortunate in a lot of ways, although I do understand why, for those of you that may not know. Part of the reason why the makeup changed so much over the years is because, yes, in certain movies you did have, different makeup effects artists that wanted to put their own stamp on the makeup. But it is unfortunate that look never carried over with any sort of continuity and consistency, because it was just terrifying. And Robert Englund, unfortunately, by the time he gets to part 4 or 5 and certainly 6, the reason why he looks sort of bubblegum-like and it looks cheap and you kind of just see Robert really, is because he was sick and tired of spending really long really long hours in the makeup chair, being poked and prodded and all, and they needed to figure out a way to streamline the process without sacrificing too much on the quality but still deliver Freddy. They needed to figure out, how can we get this on him and make this more efficient and quicker and faster for Robert, and of course for the production schedule as well. And so that is probably one of the big reasons why by Freddy's Dead he looks the way he does, and he doesn't look nearly as phenomenal as he did in parts 1 or 2, certainly 2. But yeah, my favorite look of Freddy is part 2. My favorite Freddy is part 2, hands down, absolutely. And I hate to say this for all you guys that think part 3 is the second best or the best. Part 3 is not my second favorite. It's probably my third, maybe even fourth. That might be a hot take for some of you Fred heads out there, but my favorite is the original, hands down. It's absolutely incredible. My second favorite is part 2. And then my third favorite is 3. But I have to say, the last time I watched The Dream Master, I kind of dug it more than I remember. Now, mind you, Freddy, it's MTV Freddy, and he's not really scary anymore, and 100%. I'm not talking about Freddy, but there's some dream sequences in that movie that are just fucking fantastic. Of course, that was directed by Rennie Harlan, who's got the Strangers Chapter 1, Chapter 2, and Chapter 3 all coming this year. That's a whole other topic, but I mean, the dream sequence that Alice has in the movie theater, the surrealism of it, the cinematic language, the symbolism, it's just, there's some really good things in The Dream Master. Yeah, again, Freddy's MTV Freddy's got the sunglasses on and, fine. But there's things about Elm Street 4 that I actually like better than Elm Street 3, the last time I can remember. So I know that might be a bit of a hot take for some, but certainly, I just spat there. But certainly, yeah, part 1 and 2 are my favorites for sure, hands down. And I talked about this yesterday, of course, and I've talked about this before, but it bears repeating here because this is the show where we're talking about Elm Street and Freddy. I do not subscribe to the idea that Robert Englund cannot be replaced. I know that is a very popular and very loud opinion and stance. I mean, you just look at the social media posts about, look at the social media posts about me that was covered by Collider or Bloody Disgusting or whatever the case is. There were tons of people saying, who's this guy? Who the hell's Dave McRae? It's only Freddy. Freddy only. Fuck McRae. Freddy only. Or Freddy only. Robert only. Robert only. Robert only. And I totally get it. I totally understand it, right? I really do. And I don't want to go off on a soapbox about this, but I'll just say, I'll give you the cliff notes. I'll just say, I do not subscribe to that. I do believe that there are other actors out there that can do it justice and do a phenomenal job and make you fall in love with the character all over again. And I'm in good company with that because Robert Englund also believes that. And I don't just mean his insinuation that he thinks Kevin Bacon should be the next Freddy, which is old news. That he's been talking about that for the better part of a decade. But every now and then it pops up on like MovieWeb or Collider or some movie news site, like as if it's new news or something. And I'm just like, oh God, are we running this story again? It's old. And then people are chiming in like oh my God, really? And it's like, no, he's been saying that for years. Kevin Bacon is God, he's in his mid 60s. He's closing on 70, or somewhere around there. But I don't subscribe to that. And I don't think it should be Kevin Bacon. I think it should be a relatively unknown actor. So you can get lost in the role of Freddy, very much like how you got lost in the role of Freddy with Robert back in the early 80s, because Robert was an unknown actor. And I think that's really important. Now, again, when I say unknown, I don't mean amateur. I just mean somebody who hasn't, is not a household name. It's not somebody you immediately recognize, like, oh, I don't know, Tom Cruise, right? You know what I'm saying? And let's be honest, most actors are unknown actors, right? Most actors are unknown actors. So I do think that's who it needs to be. And again, you have to cast right. You got to cast correctly. You got to do your due diligence, but I don't subscribe to that. And listen, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention it. Of course, the feedback that I've received, from those who watched Dylan's New Nightmare has been, overall mostly positive. Not everybody loved it, and that's totally okay. That's fine, right? It's different strokes for different folks. But the feedback for my Freddy has been, generally speaking, overall really positive. And hopefully, if that's the one and only time I ever play him, hopefully I at least have been able to show diehard Robert fans out there that it can be done, that somebody else can do it. And remember, you just saw a very small snippet of what I'm able to do. I'm on screen, very briefly. So I would love to have the opportunity to be able to show you a lot more. But hopefully in the snippet that you saw, again, it's just one example of, this sort of can be done. And I mentioned this yesterday, but I'll say it again here too, because it's again, because we're talking about it today. When I was at the Mad Monster convention, there was a guy that came up to Cecil. He told me about this. I wasn't there. I was having my photos done with Miko and Vince and Ron Sloan. There were people coming up having their photos taken. But some guy after the premiere walked up to Cecil and said, listen, I just want to say that was great. I'll be honest with you. I'm one of those people that is like Robert or nobody. It's like, no, it's fucking Robert or nobody. But I have to admit, that was pretty fucking good. He was talking about me. And so again, that's just an example of, hopefully at the end of the day, at the very least, I've been able to show that it can be done. It can be done. And that's really cool. And again, I'm not under any delusions thinking that I'm going to be the next Freddy. That would be amazing to have that opportunity. But if this is my only contribution to the Elm Street mythology, is this, fan film with Miko Hughes, which is a, direct sequel to Wes Craven's New Nightmare, that's amazing, because one of my goals was to be able to prove to, naysayers out there that it can be done. I wasn't necessarily thinking about it consciously, but I knew what the stakes were, and I knew what the pressure was. And I knew that I wanted to be able to show that. And so, as an actor myself, I do not subscribe to that. There are many actors and many people in the world that can take on this role. You just have to have a great script, a great story. You have to cast well. You have to cast the right person, and give it your all, and have people on board and involved who understand the mythology, the series, the character, and then you're laughing. You're Freddy laughing. It can be done. It can be done. But let me jump over to the other screen here. And this comes to us from Collider. This is just actually from a few weeks ago, or a couple of weeks ago. And it says, how in the hell is Nightmare on Elm Street based on a true story? Well, most of us know that Elm Street is based on a true story. Well, not based on a true story. The Elm Street story, the Elm Street films are not. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. If you know your Elm Street mythology and your Elm Street history, then you should know this already. But this is really cool. This comes to us from Collider. Okay, it says everyone's... Oh, hang on a sec. I got to... I want to make sure I'm not... Oh, no. Okay, I don't think I'm missing anything there. Everyone's favorite striped sweater-wearing, knife-gloved slasher may have been based on a true story. Whoever wrote this article found this new news. But we Fredheads and Elm Street and horror fans already know this, don't we? Anyways, this is always fun. Everyone's favorite striped sweater, maybe some of you don't know this. Everyone's favorite striped sweater wearing knife glove slasher may have been based on a true story. That's right. Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund, from A Nightmare on Elm Street, was inspired by a real life story, not just entirely made up by Wes Craven. Just when you thought the concept of Freddy infiltrating your nightmares and killing you in torturous ways couldn't be scarier than couldn't be scarier, there seemingly was a dream killer wreaking havoc in the 1980s. Nightmare on Elm Street is about a group of Midwestern teenagers, and that's something, let me stop there for a moment, because this is something you may not know as well. The original Elm Street does not take place in Ohio. does not take place in a town called Springwood. Now, of course, they've retroactively made it so it kind of does. But Wes Craven, I did a little bit of research today, and Wes Craven, and rightly so, wanted the Elm Street film to be anywhere, to be anybody's town, because every town has an Elm Street, right? And which is kind of true. I've seen many Elm Streets, and every time I see one, actually, there's an Elm Street right downtown Toronto, like right in the heart of Toronto, like with all the buildings and everything. I'm like, ooh, do Elm Street in a skyscraper. Poltergeist 3. But anyway, which is true. And he didn't want to sort of, kind of say, oh, it's here or it's there, or, wherever the case is. So when you see the scene, which is the funeral scene, Tina's funeral scene, and you do see palm trees in the background, right? For years, people thought that was a mistake. It's like, oh, why would you show that? It's supposed to be Springwood, Ohio. And it's like, well, because when the movie was made, it wasn't Springwood, and it certainly wasn't Ohio. Wes Craven knew it was probably just a town somewhere in California, but it wasn't a big deal that he showed palm trees. It wasn't a big deal. I believe, and I stand to be corrected, it wasn't until Elm Street 4, I think, where you actually saw Ohio license plates, I believe. And it wasn't until Elm Street 6, Freddy's Dead, that it was confirmed in the opening. And I believe even the name Springwood, I think maybe was brought in Elm Street 2, but Ohio wasn't a thing. It's something like that. You Elm Street Fred heads can correct me here or sort of steer me in the right direction, but it was something like that. The first Elm Street, didn't really know. Clearly somewhere in California, probably, right? Where there are palm trees. But we don't know. Elm Street 2, we hear the name Springwood for the first time. Elm Street 4, I think we see Ohio license plates. Elm Street 6, I believe it's confirmed with the opening that it is Springwood, Ohio. I think that's how it went, if I'm not mistaken, but I stand to be corrected on those details. But I find that interesting. So it's not a mistake. It's not like Halloween. Okay, Halloween from 1978, you do see palm trees in the background. That is a goof because the movie is supposed to take place in Haddonfield, Illinois, right? In Elm Street, we don't know where it's supposed to take place. We have no idea. And when you're making that first movie, you're not thinking this is going to become one of the most iconic franchises in the history of cinema, right? You're just making a horror movie, a low-budget horror movie, and New Line is getting in on the game, praying that it's a success, or New Line's going to kick the bucket the way of the dodo bird. And hey, it becomes a success, and that's why New Line is the house that Freddy built. I don't know if you guys know that, but that's what they say over at New Line. Freddy Krueger and Elm Street saved New Line. Anyway, let's jump over to the other screen here and let me go back to this. But I just thought that was interesting. A Nightmare on Elm Street is about a group of Midwestern teenagers, well, okay, I guess now it is, who are all experiencing the same nightmarish fate. A man named Freddy Krueger preys upon them in their sleep. Krueger is a badly burned boogeyman who kills people in their dreams, which manifests into their deaths in real life. That, in and of itself, is a terrific premise for a horror movie. I mean, now you can't do it because you'll always be compared to A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I totally get it. But man, fuck, that's great. It's just such a great premise. The only way to avoid falling victim to Krueger is to stay awake at any cost. Otherwise, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you. There are 8 movies in the franchise, which include one mashup of worlds. I got to get this over here a little bit. There we go. Mashup of worlds, Freddy versus Jason. There is also a 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street, but we can let that remake die in her sleep. Because of the success of the franchise, there is also a 4-hour documentary titled Never Sleep Again, The Elm Street Legacy. Yes, there is. Have you seen it, ladies and gentlemen? It is fantastic. If you have not seen the 4-hour documentary called Never Sleep Again, The Elm Street Legacy, I highly recommend it. You will Thank me. My invoice is in the mail. There was also a TV series titled Freddy's Nightmares. There was, and almost a Fear Factor style reality show with Freddy Krueger as the host titled Real Nightmares. The legacy of Freddy Krueger is one of the most popular in the history of horror. I could not agree more. And legacies never die. So how did the sarcastic and sadistic child murderer come to fruition? The LA Times can be thanked for that. Now, again, most of us should already know this, but you know. Oh yeah, there's the synopsis. There it is, folks. There it is. I remember walking into the video store back in like 85, 86 and seeing that. I have that poster in my hallway over here. Oh man, there it is. I would stare at it. I was like 6 years old in the little, I don't know, mom and pop video store staring at this cover, and it would enamor me. It was magical. It was mysterious. It was calling to me, Dave, Dave, or maybe like Freddy. It's amazing. Teenager Nancy Thompson must uncover the dark truth concealed by her parents after she and her friends become targets of the spirit of a serial killer with a bladed glove in their dreams, in which if they die, it kills them in real life. Not the best synopsis, but hey, it does. All right. The real life inspiration behind A Nightmare on Elm Street. All right, let me see if I can. Damn it. Okay, I'll just do this. Surprisingly enough, Craven started writing horror scripts without ever seeing a horror movie first. In Vulture's oral history of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Craven said that he was stuck with inspiration for the Dream Killer when he found an article in the LA Times. And the article was about a Cambodian family coming to America to escape mass genocide in the killing fields. They made it to the United States, and all was fine until the young boy in the family was terrified to sleep because he felt that if he slept, he would be killed by something chasing him. Jesus, that is terrifying. I want to just hang on a sec here, man. Do this here. Okay, I think that might help. There we go. I think this might help a little bit. That is fucking, let me just say that is absolutely terrifying, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely terrifying. He forced himself to stay awake for days at a time, and eventually he died in the middle of a nightmare. This is true, folks. This is 100% true. This became the basis for A Nightmare on Elm Street, Craven told Cinefantastique magazine. That it also wasn't the only article that he saw. There were 3 other articles about unexplained deaths of those from Laos. Is that how you say that? Laos, Cambodia. None of the articles connected the deaths together, even though they were all eerily similar. The last of the men dying in their sleep was found with a Mr. Coffee Maker in his closet and discarded sleeping pills that he never took. It's creepy stuff, man. Like really creepy stuff. This isn't the first case of Southeast Asia refugees dying in their sleep. However, many young men in the country of Laos, were falling asleep to their deaths due to a fatal ailment. This was eventually named Sudden Unexplained Nocturnal Death, or SUNDS. Sudden Unexplained Nocturnal Death Syndrome. SUNDS, SUNDS. The ailment affected young men between the ages of 20 and 30 from the Hmong ethnic group. Hmong, is that how you say that? My apologies if I'm butchering it. Who were persecuted in Laos after they were, I don't have my glasses. Damn it. They were recruited by the CIA the CIA. Anytime you get the CIA in there, it's like, what the fuck's going on? And agreed to fight the North Vietnamese in the Vietnam War. Between 1978 and 1981, there were 13 nocturnal deaths of Hmong young men recorded. According to the LA Times, 98% of those deaths occurred between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. during the year 1980. 1981, 26 Hmong men died for the same reason. Many victims were found dead, but if... Oh, hang on a second, let me scroll down here. But if medics arrived in time, the men were found with their hearts contracting obscenely fast. It's crazy stuff. There has been a lot of speculation on what could possibly be causing SUNS. Some doctors suspected poor diet, as the longer the refugees were living away from the camps on the killing fields, the more likely they were to live. Others suspected that it could be due to exposure to chemical nerve agents during the Vietnam War, but that was dispelled quickly. In an LA Times article, a medical examiner mentioned that if it were a chemical agent, it doesn't make sense that it would affect only men and only during a specific time frame in the evening. Some Hmong members felt they were being punished by spirits for leaving and abandoning their homelands. SUNS is still unexplained to this day. Wow. And there you have, oh, I guess it goes on here. Craven took the idea to Hollywood and was largely turned down by many directors and production studios, even including Universal Studios. In Vulture's oral history of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Craven admits he has the rejection letter from Universal hanging on his wall. Many deterred Craven from wanting to make this film because of the basis of the plot. Many warned him that it wouldn't be accepted because, yes, well, everyone has nightmares. Everyone eventually wakes up from them without being attacked by a knife-fingered maniac. Bob Shea, the eventual producer of A Nightmare on Elm Street, felt differently. He met with Craven and told him he loved it. They set a budget of 700,000 shekels. That was mainly funded by a Yugoslavian man who wanted his girlfriend to be in the movie. Freddy's iconic red and green sweater was a necessity because Craven had read a Scientific American article that stated red and green together is the most difficult color combination for the human eye to see together. He also wanted those to be Freddy's signature colors and a way to recognize him immediately since he is a shapeshifter. This is seen at the end of the original Nightmare on Elm Street when the kids drive off in the convertible and the roof is red and green striped, signifying that maybe the end for those kids. Wow. A very real and unexplainable phenomenon inspired one of the most successful and iconic horror franchises. In Vulture's oral history, the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, referred to New Line Cinema as the house that Freddy built. Well, there you go. That's where it came from, I guess. And horror pop culture would agree with that. Inspiration can strike in the most unexpected places. And for Craven, that LA Times article was exactly what he needed to create horror history. A Nightmare on Elm Street is available to rent now on Prime Video. This video is not sponsored by Prime. That's just what it says there in the article. Amazing, ladies and germs. Did you know that? Who knew that? Did you know that? I knew that. That, of course, has been out there forever. It's been out there for a very long time. But man, is that ever cool. And, inspiration does come from really cool places. I mean, look at the major feature that I want to do, that I'm in development on. I was going to say pre-production, but that's not true at all. Well, pump the brakes there, McRae. Port Robinson Road, right? That is inspired by a true story in my own life, right? So it's so true. I mean, some of the biggest inspirations that you can have is based on things that happen in your life, right? And they don't have to be like a true story in the sense that everything about it is true. It's not a biopic, right? It's just certain things in your life inspire you to use that as the template to create a narrative as the basis, right? And that was the case for A Nightmare on Elm Street, and the rest is history, as they say. Now, before we jump over to the chat room and see what all you are saying about this, I just wanted to show you this. I've showed these before, but I think it's still really cool. I have an original media box, of course, VHS of the original Elm Street. Yes, indeedy, folks. This is from the late 80s, and it looks pretty good. All things considered, it looks pretty darn good, if you ask me. Pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. The original Elm Street I have on VHS. There's many different, whenever somebody posts about a Nightmare on Elm Street, like, when somebody talks about a Nightmare on Elm Street and they post like a photo or a poster or a cover of the original Elm Street, you'll often see that. I mean, it's iconic. I mean, it's just absolutely iconic. I don't see people posting this too often when it comes to a Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And this is my favorite. And again, it could be because of nostalgic reasons. I have seen some pretty cool looking Elm Street 2 posters and stuff. But this is just very nostalgic for me, even though this is obviously a mirrored kind of version because the glove's on the wrong hand. But it doesn't really matter. The glove's also on the wrong hand on the back of the VHS cover of Elm Street 3. We'll get to that. But this is the VHS of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. This is also from the late 80s, early 90s. I think the late 80s. I bought this in the late 80s. It's got some water damage on it, but there it is. That, when I think of a poster or a cover of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, that's what I think of. I don't have a poster of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, but if I did, to go, and sit beside my Elm Street 1 poster, and all my posters are plaqued, by the way, on wood. That's how I roll. Just helps protect them, right? I would totally want to get that. I think that would be a cool poster to sit beside, because that's what I think of. For me, that was what was in the video stores in the 80s and the 90s too. But that's what I used to stare at this too. Oh, it just spoke to me. It spoke to me. There's the back. DDD. Not bad. Still, I mean, again, there's some Scotch tape here that I've had to tape, and there's a bit of damage, but all things considered, for something that's like 35 years old, probably older than that, it's pretty good. And then, of course, the other VHS one I have is A Nightmare. And whenever you see the poster for Elm Street 3, this is usually what you see. A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. Not The Dream Warriors. How many of you made that mistake? I made that mistake. I've made that mistake. It's not Elm Street 3 The Dream Warrior. No, it's Elm Street 3 just Dream Warriors. There is no The. But it is The Dream Master, I think. Elm Street 3 Dream Master? No, I think it is The Dream Master. But then it's just Dream Child, I think. Anyway, I got to take a look. But anyway, there you go. Nightmare on Elm Street 3. The Dream Warriors, not The Dream Warriors. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. And this is also from this definitely would have been from the late 80s, because the movie came out in 87. So I probably picked this up in like 88 or 89. But if you look here, see here, it's a mirrored image, because in that image, Freddy's got the glove on his left hand. Technically, it should be flipped. But I guess it worked better for the layout of the VHS cover. That's fine, whatever. But, hey, we horror fans notice that kind of stuff. But, yeah, pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff indeed. All righty. Let's jump over to the chat room and see what all you are talking about with A Nightmare on Elm Street. Hey, if you're watching live or after the fact, jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on Freddy Krueger, on Elm Street, 40 years this year. We are celebrating 40 years of one of the most iconic horror villains, antagonists in the history of motion pictures, ladies and gentlemen. Freddy Krueger, a pop culture zeitgeist icon. And let me know your thoughts down below. Let's jump over now. Some super chats did come in, so let me get these super chats. Let's see here. We've got some super chats came in. We've got Matt Rayner. What's going on, Matt Rayner? Sends in $13.99. Thank you, Matt. And says, as much as I would like to see a complete series 4K set, like what Scream Factory did with Friday, I would be okay with just this film getting the 4K Blu-ray with maybe a steelbook and some extra stuff. Yeah, I'd be okay with that as well. I have the Blu-ray set. Again, the only thing I don't like, and the only thing I don't like about older movies getting the 4K and even the Blu-ray treatment, old movies, is the removal of the masking that they do over wires and special effects. And you see it in The Exorcist. Guys, I hate to say it, but I mean, hey, don't shoot the messenger. When Reagan is levitating above the bed, if you're watching it on Blu-ray, and is The Exorcist out on 4K? If it's out on 4K, you'll definitely notice it. But you notice it on Blu-ray, don't shoot the messenger. If you're watching it on Blu-ray, and if your screen is big enough, you will, and if you look closely, you'll see the wires lifting Reagan up off the bed. It's so disheartening. Now, it doesn't ruin the movie, but I know, I guess, I don't know how much it would cost, but I'm sure it would cost something. But it frustrates me that when all these studios will remaster an old movie to make it look phenomenal, they don't then go in and retouch up the effects they've now revealed. Like, it frustrates me. When you watch Elm Street 3 on Blu-ray and Freddy Krueger picks up the Wizard Master. I'm the Wizard Master. And he picks him up, right? With one hand. And well, if you look carefully, you can see the wires picking him up. And I'm like, oh man, you don't notice that in the VHS, right? Because obviously it's not high definition, and they've gone in and they've, for all intents and purposes, painted them out. And I just wish that they would go and do that. Go back in and retouch it up so we don't see it. I don't know how much that would cost. I don't know. I don't even know at all. Obviously, it would cost something, but that's always something that has bothered me. Now, if it's an older movie that doesn't have any effects in terms of like wires and things like that, not a big deal. It's like The Empire Strikes Back. When you watch The Empire Strikes Back on Blu-ray and Luke is on Dagobah and he's upside down using the Force, and he's got the rocks that are levitating. Well, if you look closely, when the rock sort of floats down and, kind of settles, if you look closely, you can see a little wire there. And it's like, oh, fuck, you know what I mean? It doesn't ruin the movie. It doesn't ruin it because, we're smart enough to, get it. But if you're going to go to all the effort to, release a movie like an old film on 4K with pristine, amazing quality, well, fucking go in and get rid of those wires again, would you please? Anyway, I just had to say that. But I'm down with that, Matt. I think that'd be cool. Matt Rayner follows up with another $6.99. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. It's also the 35th anniversary of The Dream Child. It is. Not one of my favorites, though, Matt. Not one of my favorites, but you are correct. You are correct. Scott Benny sends in... Benny, maybe, sends in $2. Thank you, Scott. Says, Dave McRae is the new Freddy. Damn it, pay the man. Yes. I'm on board. Who is this Dave McRae? Let's get him. I'm totally on board with that, Scott. I appreciate the vote of confidence, man. Matt Rayner again. Thank you, Matt. Really appreciate that. Following up with another one, says, thank you, Wes, for creating a horror icon that is still popular 40 years later. And for creating a great goddamn story to go along with it. Rest in peace. I could not agree more. Rest in peace, Wes Craven. It's hard to believe that he died in 2015. He's been dead for nearly 10 years now. Crazy. And then we got Lee the Machine Bowers, ladies and gentlemen, comes in with an extremely generous $49.99. Thank you, Lee. I really appreciate that. Says, Dave, my man, I wish the Craven estate could give Cecil the rights and funds to do a Nightmare on Elm Street movie and bring you back as Freddy. Hey, I'm right there with you. I'm in. Happy birthday, Freddy. One more time. That's right. Happy birthday, Freddy. I mean, again, the actual movie was not released until November, I think, but nonetheless, in the fall, I think it was. Was it the fall? Yeah, I think it was the fall. Anyways, it wasn't today. It wasn't March. But yeah, happy birthday. Happy birthday year. That's what it is. Happy birthday year. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh, and says, did you see Facebook temporarily shut down today? What do you think would happen if an extended period of time, like several months? Oh, people would lose their minds. It's actually quite hilarious how many people... Facebook goes down for an hour and people are losing their mind. Folks, we're not going to make it. We are so reliant. We are so heavily reliant on the internet and social. Everything is woven digitally. Our currency, our banking, our interaction, our social, everything. Facebook goes down and you'd think the fucking, you'd think some epic terrorist thing. I mean, it's wild. Oh my God, I can't get on Facebook. When I couldn't get onto Facebook and I realized that it was down, I just went, oh, okay, all right, and I just went on with my day. It'll come back, and sure enough, an hour later it was gone. But yeah, no, I mean, if it went down for like 2 months, Josh, I mean, humanity would die. Kiss my flapjack. Hey, what's going on, buddy? Great to see you here. Says, finally caught a stream live again. My first nightmare was part 3, which means I unfortunately knew Who Survives the original when I went to watch it. Oh, yeah, because Nancy, of course, right? Fair enough. Yeah. Great to see you here. Kiss my flapjack. Nice here. Colt Hayes sends in $9.99. Thank you, Colt, and says, I just saw a new Freddy Krueger shown. I just picture a new Freddy Krueger shown subtly. I see him peeking around from a dark lit alleyway with glowing eyes, similar to the eyes we see from Mike Flanagan's horror movies and shows. Shown subtly. Ooh, Colt, I like it. I like where you're going with it. I do. I like where you're going with it. Josh McKenna sends in another $9.99. Thank you, Josh, and says, are you planning on watching the Oscars this weekend? Well, I don't have cable, so I'll probably have to catch it via live stream somewhere. Here's the thing with the Oscars is that, and I know this sounds bad because I'm a movie guy, but, years ago, before the internet, I remember tuning into the Oscars all the time, or before social media, let's say, or before even social media became a real juggernaut in the free flow of information and how you get your entertainment. Now you don't have to watch the Oscars. You can just get updates from others, from the media who is watching the Oscars. So I will know who wins because I'll get alerts or I'll see it on X or Facebook or whatever. I don't actually have to sit down and watch the ceremony, which is disappointing. Now, to be fair, the Oscars have, they've been kind of, a bore fest the last number of years, and how we consume entertainment and media is changing, of course. And so, but no, I probably won't watch it. I'll just do what I've done the last few years and just pay attention to the updates that come in on who wins. All right, let me, hang on. No, not yet there. And then, I am. Good. Amadusia sends in $5. Thank you. Says, glad you have appreciation for Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Dave. I have to admit, I think it's my favorite, followed by Nightmare on Elm Street 1. Yeah, man, listen, I am a unapologetic fan of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I think I understand its problems. I understand its, its issues with, we'll say the rules. They play a little fast and loose with the rules. I do understand that. But, but the Elm Street, but Freddy the makeup is so fantastic. Freddy is so fucking scary in that movie that he's so strong as a character, as a villain in that film, that I just don't care. I just don't care that, it's, the gay Elm Street, for years, right? Like, now obviously it's more acceptable because we've grown up a lot over the years as a society. But when I was growing up, it was like, you like the gay Freddy or the gay version? I mean, people would say that. And they would also say, other things to describe gay as well. But I mean, it was the 80s, man. And, but I've always been a fan of that movie. And in the 80s as a kid, I mean, I always knew that Jesse was effeminate, like he was soft, we'll say, right? He had a softer sort of, even as a young boy, I recognized that. But it wasn't until obviously I got older that I started to realize, there is a lot of, homosexual undertones, overtones, it's not, you've got a gay bar, you got Jesse going to the gay, you got Rob Shea and fucking leather, for goodness sakes, right? And there's a lot of and the writer who said for years, I think his name was David, I stand to be corrected on that, but the writer of Elm Street 2 for years would deny it. And then it was only because of the Scream Queen documentary that Robert Pattinson is the Batman. Robert Pattin? Yeah. Is that right? Yeah. I get them mixed up. It was only because of his documentary a few years ago that he finally came forward and admitted, yeah, no, okay, yeah, I guess it's like, well, yeah, it's obvious. You don't accidentally write that. Why is it a gay bar? Like, why would that be your, like, why, right? I mean, it's clearly, I mean, there's clearly things happening. And even between Freddy and Jesse, but it works though, because, and Robert Pattinson at that time was not, hang on a sec. Mark Patton, not Robert Patton, Mark Patton. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Mark Patton. Of course, Mark Patton, not Robert Patton, Mark Patton. At that time, Mark Patton was not out of the closet, as they say. And so, when you watch that movie, I mean, you can really look at it from Freddy as a dream demon, he's supposed to know all your insecurities. He's supposed to know all your, vulnerabilities. And so Freddy knows that, Jesse is gay. Freddy knows this, and Freddy is there to exploit it. And it's incredibly uncomfortable for Jesse, especially in the 80s, right? I mean, it was not like the hip, cool thing to come out and, say you're gay. Thankfully, things have changed. But yeah, dude, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. It's there's so many, for me, it's mostly just, and that opening dream sequence. I mean, I didn't even talk about, like, in A Nightmare on Elm Street 1, I think Elm Street 1 has probably the best slasher kill in the history of slashers. And it's the Tina death, in my opinion. And it's not just the death itself, it's everything. It's the entire dream sequence. So it's when she hears the rocks being chucked at the window. And she's like, right. And then, the rocks get louder, and she walks over to the window, and then she, Tina, and it's all of that. It's the lead up. It's the journey. And then she walks out into the alleyway, and then Freddy comes around the corner, and Tina, and he's got the long arms, and this is God, and it's all of that too. It's the entire journey capped off by, her on the ceiling. It's just, I mean, nowadays, again, in 2024, we're so desensitized. And I understand kids today watch that and they probably laugh and go, whatever, I've seen 10,000 things that are better. And it's like, yeah, but in 1984, you little twat, things like that didn't exist. And that was so, I mean, there was it was utilized in Poltergeist in 82, the same effect. But generally speaking, twat, yeah, little twat. I'm going to have a bunch of teenagers now going, but it's true. It's true. And it was so like, it was, nobody had seen anything like it, guys. It was just like, what the fuck? It's still to this day, I think one of the greatest, if not the greatest death kill in a slasher film. One of the best dream sequences in all the Elm Street movies is the opening of Elm Street 2. Bar none, hands down. The whole bus sequence, the bus, rides off into the fucking field, and then the ground gives way and it's teeter-tottering on like these pillar, like just that shot of the bus, and it's a miniature, and you can tell it's a miniature now, but it still looks fucking amazing. And you buy into it. It doesn't matter if it looks a little miniature-like. You buy into it because of the surrealism of the dream. Like, it looks like a Salvador Dali painting. Like, it's just so awesome. The surrealism and the purple sky and the lightning and the bus just teeter-tottering, and Freddy, oh my God, he's vicious and scary and cloaked in shadow, and he gets up, and the knives going up the back of the bus, and you just hear his laugh. You just hear that, and he's going along, and it's just like he's terrifying. He's terrifying. And then you juxtapose that with great graphics, from Freddy's Dead. And he's like, or, he's on the chalkboard going, and it's like, oh, fuck, what happened? What happened? Oh, man, it's so good. It's so good. The opening of Elm Street 2, one of the greatest openings, probably the best opening out of all the Elm Street films, period. And one of the best dream sequences, the best, I would say, in the franchise, period. And it's just it's so awesome. It's so awesome. Love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Have I got all the super chats? I just want to make sure. Oh, hang on. No, one came in from, hang on. We got another one that's come in here. Another one's come in from Jonathan Clancy. Jonathan Clancy sends in 10 euros. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that. And says, I was born in 1984. I'm always proud that I was born with one of the smartest slasher films. Adored Craven when I grew up. He had the best psychological slashers. He was great. He was great. He was certainly one of the titans. I mean, you got Elm Street, you got Scream, of course, in 1996. I mean, yeah, those are two properties that have entered into the pop culture zeitgeist as iconic. And he was responsible for, helping to spearhead those into existence. So I couldn't agree more, man. And happy birthday. Whenever your birthday is this year, Jonathan, happy birthday. And I hope it's a good one for you. Let's see here. Whew, I'm thirsty. Talking a lot on the show today. Clu Gallagher is great as the father as well. I could not agree more, Hex. He's there's a lot of funny things. I actually think I did the best and worst of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I think I did all the Elm Street films with the guys over at the Slaughtered Lamb, Darren and Frank. So yeah, head over there, check out the Slaughtered Lamb movie podcast if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to them. They're great. They do their main sort of flagship show is the best and worst of, fill in the blank movie. And they've done so many horror movies. And about a year or two ago, they had me on and we did the entire Elm Street franchise, the best and worst. So like best character, worst character, best line, worst line, best moment, best kill, worst kill, best moment, all that kind of stuff. And I had a lot of fun and it's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. It's all in good fun. So make sure you go over there and check them out because that was a lot of fun. Bainey, I was right. Bainey, Scott Bainey. I think I said that, but maybe I was wrong. It's Bainey. No big deal, bro. No big deal. Thank you, Scott. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Tyler Adams says, I hope DNM Part 2 has some surreal sequences. Would love to see some dream world antics. Well, if and when Cecil decides to move forward with Dylan's New Nightmare 2, I haven't heard anything yet. I mean, I think he wants to get everything completed with the first campaign first. Get all the Blu-rays out there, all the shipment and all the things that, are involved with the Indiegogo campaign. He just wants to close the door officially on Dylan's New Nightmare. And then whether or not he jumps right into, the sequel to Dylan's New Nightmare, I have no idea. Again, folks, I'm not a producer on the project. I'm not a writer on the project. I'm not the director, of course. I'm just an actor on it. So if you want to know all the juicy details about production or when a Blu-ray is coming or that, you gotta, steer your messages to Cecil Laird of the Horror Show YouTube channel. He's the guy that's going to have that information. Or even Vincent DeSanti of Womp Stomp Films, obviously, is a producer on the project. But I wasn't involved in that way. So, obviously I will know bits and pieces as it comes to me. But as just an actor on that project, I don't know, too much. Cody the Zombie, my man, one of our great channel members here, Cody the Zombie, sends in $4.99 and says, The Crow is one of my all-time faves. I've been waiting 10 plus years since the talks of a remake, and after the recent leaked pics, I'm beyond disappointed. Well, I don't know I'm not a Crow expert. So I think I've seen The Crow, but it's entirely possible I haven't. I know it came out in 1994 or 93. I think it was 94. Obviously, we know the story of Brandon Lee and the tragic thing that happened and all that. But again, I'm not a comic book guy. I'm not a graphic novel guy. The Crow never really appealed to me as a kid. The gothic sort of emo kind of aesthetic of The Crow never really appealed to me. As an adult now, I think I could watch it and probably will, but I don't think I watched it as a kid. I'm very aware of its popularity and its cult status, of course. When I saw Bill Skarsgård, as The Crow, the image, because I don't have an emotional attachment to it, I just thought, but I do know, obviously I too am very used to Brandon Lee's version of The Crow, very much, the makeup and all that kind of stuff. So when I saw Bill Skarsgård's look, I was like, oh, it doesn't really look like The Crow. But at the same time, I don't know too much about the mythology or the lore of The Crow, so I don't know if this is like, is he supposed to have makeup? Like, does he have makeup on in the graphic novel or is he? And also, folks, keep in mind, just because he doesn't have the makeup, and I'm not saying it's just the makeup. I know people had an issue with his hair and all that too. But just because he doesn't look like the Crow you know and love from that one image, you haven't seen the movie yet. Maybe by the end of that film, there's something that happens. And, it ends and he's got, and all of a sudden he looks like the Crow you know and love. And you're like, oh yeah, because they're setting up a sequel or something. I don't know. I'm just saying that it from that one image, you know nothing. You literally know fuck all from that one image, other than he doesn't look like how you believe he should look. And that's totally fair. That's totally fair. And as somebody, to be fair, I have to be careful I don't, step out of my lane. As somebody that doesn't know a lot about the mythology, there's certain things that I don't know that maybe you, like you yourself, who are probably far more of an expert on The Crow than I am, could probably say, well, no, it should look like this and be like this because of this. To me, it just looks like, he looks like he's in the Crow sphere, and maybe at some point, maybe that's how he begins, but that's not how he ends, right? I mean, who knows? I have no idea. We haven't seen the movie yet. So that's my take on it, but I'm not emotionally attached to it like a lot of fans are. And I can live vicariously through that because I can understand how, I think about other things in my life where I feel that way about, and I'm like, yeah, so I feel for you, man. I do. I really do. No, Dave, that was Sting. That was Sting. The wrestler Sting, he had makeup. Yep, that's right. But didn't Brandon Lee? I thought Brandon Lee had makeup. Didn't Brandon Lee have some makeup in The Crow? I thought he did. Maybe he didn't. If he didn't, that goes to show you how little I know. Roberto Torres sends in $9.99. Thank you, Roberto. Says, hey, Dave, have you considered starting a Letterboxd account? It'd be a great way to follow what movies you like and get new movie recommendations. Also, can I get a but Dave? Take care of yourself. But Dave or but Roberto? I have not decided. No, I have not. I think it's just because I'm not a movie reviewer. So I've never, I probably, it would, if full disclosure, if I opened one up, it would probably just sit there dormant. I wouldn't know. I'm not a movie reviewer. I wouldn't get on there and take the time to review a movie or anything like that. And so, no, I haven't really thought about it. And to be fair, guys, yeah, I don't know. I'll think about it. I mean, but it's probably going to be movies that you already know or you've already seen, I can't remember the last time I was on Letterboxd. I think I went on there to look at the It's Me Billy reviews, maybe. And that would have been a couple of years ago. So I'm not sure. I don't want to set unrealistic expectations. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably forget. I had it. Just full disclosure. I'd probably forget it was there. But, you know, Cody the Zombie said he did, Dave. Oh, he did. Okay, great. So he did have makeup. I thought he had makeup. I thought he did. Yeah. I'm aware that Sting, I think the wrestler Sting probably, he kind of looks like the Crow. Maybe he got inspired by the Crow. Maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. I have no idea. All right, have I got all the super chats? Let me see. Cody the Zombie says, looks like Leto's Joker, Florida Joker. Florida Joker? I'm not sure what Florida Joker means, but Leto's Joker, yeah. Well, I mean, who knows, right? It's just a photograph. Give it a chance. Give it a chance. Let's not judge a book by its cover. We'll see what happens. Okay, just want to make sure I've got all the super chats. I believe I do. I just want to make sure. Go back here. So here's a question for you. Actually, I'm going to put this up on a poll. I'm going to do a poll right now. I should have done this at the beginning of the show. Let me see here. Okay, I want to know, because I always feel, for some reason, before I post this, I always feel that Freddy is like number 3, possibly number 4 in the slasher villain that people most care about. At least in our space, in our community, Michael Myers reigns supreme. Right? He's number 1. And then I have this feeling it's Jason or Ghostface. If it's Jason, then if it's Jason next, it would be Ghostface 3 and then Freddy 4th. If it's Ghostface second, it would be Jason next. I just have that feeling that that poor old Fred kind of gets pushed to the back for some reason. I don't know. So I want to know from you guys. I want to know. There's the poll. There it is right there. I want to know. And be honest, like totally be honest. Okay, this is anonymous. I can't tell who's voting. I can just, see the number. What do you prefer? Do you prefer Jason or Freddy as a villain? I'd like to know. Captain Casual sends in $5. Thanks, buddy. Says, ever been into a sequel for Jason X? No. If not, thoughts on the Evil Dead franchise? I hope you're having a fantastic day too, Dave. Thank you. I'm not a big fan of the Evil Dead franchise. I've watched the Evil Dead movies. I'm just not, it just doesn't do much for me. I've never really been able to connect with the Evil Dead franchise. I understand it. Like I followed the story. I watched Evil Dead 1, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. I did watch Evil Dead Rise, of course, for a horror movie nights here on the member only show. But Evil Dead as a franchise, like I couldn't care less whether I watched another Evil, like I've never been able to connect. And that's okay, right? Some franchises you do, some franchises you don't. In terms of Jason X, no, I've never in my life ever wanted a sequel to Jason X. I've never thought about it. It's never crossed my mind. No, I've never really cared about a sequel to Jason X. Lee the Machine Bowers going hard into the paint again. A very generous super chat of $19.99. Thank you, Lee. And says, Robert Russler always keeps asking Sean Clark, when are we going to get Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Horror's Hallowed Grounds? But nothing yet. Sean is amazing. Yeah, it's kind of like, there's this kind of this shtick that they have. I don't know what the story is behind that, to be honest with you. But I would, as a big Elm Street 2 fan, I would love Sean to be able to do a Horror's Hallowed Grounds. Horror's Hallowed Grounds. That's a tongue twister there. Episode of A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I think that would be really cool. And maybe he'll do it one day. I don't know, but I would love to see it. Has he done it? I don't know. I can't remember. No, I don't think he has, because that's sort of the thing, right? He wants to do it with Robert, but it's no. That would be interesting. All right. Let me just see here. Just going back to make sure I've got all the super chats. Roberto, Captain, and then Lee. Yep, the last one. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Yes, indeedy. Let's see how the poll's doing so far. We've got 48 votes. I'm surprised. Freddy is well in the lead. Out of 48 votes, 65% like Freddy, 35% preferred Jason. It surprises me. And I think it surprises me because for some reason, whenever Jason news drops, whenever there's Friday the 13th news, and maybe this is just my perception of it. Maybe this is just my perception of it. But for whatever reason, I always get this sense that the horror community is way more excited and way more into another Friday the 13th and Jason and Crystal Lake and the hockey mask than they are with Freddy. I'm not saying that there isn't a fan base out there and that, Fred heads don't exist and that they don't make themselves known. But for whatever reason, I just get this sense that Jason is just way more popular than Freddy. But maybe I'm wrong on that. I mean, maybe that's just an incorrect sort of view, which is entirely possible. It's entirely possible. But yeah, 55 votes, 65 to 35 for Freddy. Okay. Hey, there's 150 people that are watching right now, folks. Make sure you vote. Vote. I want to know. Who do you prefer? And be honest. It's okay if it's Jason. I have no dog in this fight. I just want to know, do you prefer Jason? Do you prefer Freddy? Do you get more excited about Jason or more excited about Freddy? Let me know. All right. Don Wilk 91 says, I have Jason over Freddy because I like more of the Friday movies, but the OG Nightmare is top tier for me. I guess that could be one of the things, isn't it? There are far more Jason movies than there are Freddy movies. And, but I gotta say, yeah, some of those Friday movies are really hard to watch. Like, I can say the only Elm Street movie that is really hard for me to watch. Like, I mean, really hard for me to watch. I have no enjoyment watching it at all. Like, I really have no enjoyment. There's just none. Is Freddy's Dead. I just can't, and I mean, no disrespect to the filmmakers. I just don't like that movie. It's a bore. It's for me, it's painful to get through. Dream Child I don't like Dream Child, but it's in comparison to Freddy's Dead, it's a much easier watch. And then, like I said, Dream Master, I kind of like it. I can watch it, even though it's MTV Freddy. And then, of course, you're right back to, the three most popular, of course, the first three movies. With Jason, I mean, Jason X. I mean, again, like, there's fun kills, but just where it goes. Jason X and Jason Goes to Hell. What the hell is that? And, Jason Takes Manhattan. I'm like, oh, God, And then the New Blood, I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, man. I'm just tired. It's tiring of it. Just tired of it. Robert Kitzmiller says, do you think they would want to avoid putting white face paint on Bill because of the Pennywise relation that might create when watching the movie? That's a good question, Rob. I don't know. Maybe there may have been something about that. But then again, you can still do the white face paint and make it look different, right? Because he's not going to look like a clown. He's not going to have his hair up like this. He's going to look very different. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, no, that's not the reason. Usually, with things like this, it's because, it's an updated version. They want to They want to make it their own. They want to bring it into the 21st century. They want to, or they are, basing it off of a look that the Crow had in one of the graphic novels in, book 5, paragraph 6, scene 3. Like, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's really like deep dives. And when you realize sort of where it's coming from, you're like, oh, I didn't know about that Crow story about how he kind of looked like that. Like that can happen too. The inspiration does come from the source material, but it's a sort of, niche, not as well known look that the Crow had in this one story, or that can happen too. It's like Superman, right? It's like there's so many different comics and so many different graphic novels and so many, and I mean, I didn't even know that there was a Superman that had a black suit. I did not know that until, because I don't read comics, I'm not, up on it, until Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I haven't watched. I just know all about it. No, I know very little about it, but I mean, I know about the, the hype for it, and I saw images and I'm like, oh, Superman's wearing like this dark suit. That, okay. And then people, had to tell me, well, yeah, that's the such and such suit from the such and such, comic from the such and such series. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. When I think of Superman, I just think of blue and yellow and red. And you know what I'm saying? I had no idea. I had no idea there was like an evil Spider-Man until Spider-Man 3 came out, right? Like, I mean, I had no idea. No idea. And so it's possible that maybe, I mean, you Crow hardcore Crow heads, winged Crow heads, I don't know what you call yourselves, but you'll know that better than I. Like, is it possible that this could be inspired from something other than the look of what Brandon Lee had in The Crow from 1994? I don't know. It's possible. But again, you're asking the wrong guy. I know very little about The Crow, unfortunately. Let me see. A Druzy 88. A Druzy 88, is that how you say that? Says, we need that 4K box set of the Nightmare films. It'll come. It will come. I would still like to get the Friday box set. I don't have it. I don't even have the Halloween. Well, no, that's not, I always say this. I keep thinking of the Halloween Blu-ray box set from like 2012. I don't have that. I do have the 4K Scream Factory ones. But yeah, no, totally. I would love to get the Friday the 13th one. I'd love to get the Elm Street. I have the Elm Street Blu-ray set, but it's like, I mean, you open it up and like all the discs are like flipped. Like, I want like their own boxes. You know what I mean? Like I want a 4K Elm Street set with each movie has an individual box. Because when you pop in the Blu-rays for the Elm Street films now, some of the menu pages have the wrong Freddy for the movie. Like, I'm pretty sure like Elm Street 2 has like Elm Street 3 Freddy or something. And like Elm Street 4 has like Elm Street 3 or something like that. Like I'm just like, oh man, see, these are the details. These are the details that a fan would not get wrong. But you got somebody packaging it up, designing it. They just see Freddy. They're not Fred heads. They're not Freddy fans. They just see Freddy and they just think it all looks the same. No, it doesn't. It would be like going to the menu of Halloween 1978, and there's a picture of Michael Myers from The Curse of Michael Myers. We Halloween fans would be like, no, this is unacceptable. This is very sweaty nerd stuff that doesn't matter in the big picture, but it matters to us. It matters to us. Let's check that poll now. We've got 78 votes. Come on, people. There's 155 people in the chat. We should be able to get those votes up. What do you prefer? It's amazing how people, even though it's free, people don't like being told what to do. It's like, it's just, I find it funny. There's 155 people in here. Smash that like button. It's free. Well, no, I'm not going to do it. Why? Well, because you told me. And I don't like being told what to do, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah, but it's free, and it helps the algorithm, and it helps video. Well, I'm just sorry, I'm not doing it. What a sociological, interesting experiment. That would be. But yeah, hit the like button, folks. Let's see if we can get to 100 likes. We should. That is only 29 more likes. Let's get to 100 likes. It helps the video out. It helps the stream out. And it really does. I'm not just saying that. It really does. Robert Thidoff says, Dave, what would you think would be a great alternative sweater for Freddy? I think an all black sweater would make him even scarier. Yeah. All black would be really cool. Or black and like real rich red stripes or something. That might be interesting. You know what I mean? That might be interesting. I don't know. I kind of dig and that was the original idea, by the way. Wes Craven, because obviously Freddy is inspired by the old man, the creepy old man that Wes saw out his window as a child that looked up to him, or looked up at him, I should say, not looked up to him, looked up at him like this, and like, oh, give him a fucking creepy face. And I believe he had a trench coat on, or a coat and a fedora. And so I believe one of the initial ideas was for Freddy to be in a coat in that first movie. That obviously didn't happen, but that's one of the reasons why he brought the coat into New Nightmare in 94. I kind of like the coat. Like, I think it's kind of a cool look. It's cool. Yeah, I think there might be something there. But beyond that, yeah, a black sweater would be cool, like an all black sweater. That definitely would be cool. And I would say maybe like a black and red sweater might be kind of cool too. Like a black and red striped sweater might be kind of cool. I don't know. It's interesting. All right. I'm not missing any super chats, right? I don't see anybody saying, Dave, you missed a super chat. Let me just go back. No, Lee's the last one. Okay, good. Just want to make sure, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to make sure. Okay. Hex says, I can't pick between the two, but you have to, Hex. You have to pick between the two. Freddy or Jason? Jason or Freddy? Which one do you prefer? Which movie do you want to watch? Like, if you had a choice, what you're on a desert island and you could have all the Friday movies or all the Jason movies, but you cannot have both. What series are you going with? The first thing you think of. Don't think about it too long. Don't think about it too long. You're going to psych yourself out. You're going to change your mind. The first thing that pops into your head. What is it? There's your answer. Lee the Machine Bowers sends in another $9.99. Thank you, Lee. Says Scream Factory got Killer Clowns from Outer Space 4K on their site for pre-order. That movie been due for a 4K. Thankfully, we're getting it from Scream Factory. I have never seen Killer Clowns from Outer Space. I know the movie you're talking about, but I have yet to see Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Is it a movie I should watch? How good, how cheesy is it? I don't know. I'm not sure. Guitarist Dog 87 says, Dave, my first memory of Freddy Krueger was a water gun my cousin had in the early 90s. This is cool. I like stories like this. A Freddy Krueger head you wore as a puppet, but would shoot water out of his mouth. Fascinating. I bet you know what? I bet you if you did a Google search, you could find an image of that somewhere on the internet. That's really cool. Really cool. Cody the Zombie says, I ain't gonna lie. That's good, Cody. I was never a big fan of Freddy or Jason. Myers was always my guy, but I would pick Jason. There you go. Well, then make sure you pick him. Vote. Make sure you vote. Let me see here. Oh, and by the way, folks, yeah, if you want to become a member here on the channel, hit that join button. I have two levels, level number 1 and level number 2. Level number 2 might be the most interest to you because that's where obviously you get the most things. But it's just a reminder to our members that this Friday night, we're having our next episode of Horror Movie Nights, and we're watching Thanksgiving this Friday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully I'll see all my, or at least most of my level number 2 members this Friday night as we watch Thanksgiving. You can watch Thanksgiving along with me. It is free to watch on Netflix now. So you can tune in and we can have a watch along of Thanksgiving this Friday night. But I always forget to remind people that I have a membership here on my channel. And yeah, so just hit the join button and check it out. If you, I think level number 1, you get access to, obviously your name will be highlighted in the chat. You'll see some people have their name in green and they have little badges beside their names. You can also send in a member chat. So it's not a super chat, but it's a chat that highlights green. And then I can see that, and that's a member chat, which is really cool. And then level number 1, you get it. So you get all that, and you also get access to member-only Q&As, which is really cool. And by the way, to my members, we have another one coming up probably next week. So I'll let you guys know when that's going to happen because we're due for one. And then level number 2, you get access to One Good Scare, which is the Halloween only show, which is where we don't have to feel guilty talking about all the things we've already talked about and just just talk about our love of Halloween and movies and, the Halloween films and Michael Myers and all that kind of stuff. And then of course you also get access to the horror movie nights, which our next episode is this Friday, and member only polls and member only giveaways. I did one member giveaway last year. I want to start doing more this year as well. So anyways, I just want to say that. I keep forgetting to mention that I have a membership. Of course, you see that. Oh, and you get your name on a member card, which is at the beginning of all my shows and videos. I think that's it. Is that it? Yeah. I think that's it. So feel free to check it out if you want, and let me know your thoughts if you do. All right, we've got Jason Stillwell, one of our members. He's got a little badge beside his name. He's one of our members. So is Lee the Machine Bowers. Sends in $5. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Says, Freddy for sure. It's been 30 years since he's had a good movie, and we need one, just not from Blumhouse. I don't know. Jason Blum wants his hands on Jason Voorhees. Does he want his hands on? Does he want to make the Trinity? Does he want to make? I don't know. Lee the Machine Bauer sends in $9.99 and says, put it on the list to watch, Dave. Please do. Do you still have a P.O. box? I do not have a P.O. box anymore. No. I got rid of the P.O. box because I had it for a while and then people were not sending me anything. So I was paying for a P.O. box that wasn't really getting used. So I got rid of it. I could always get it back again, but for now I've gotten rid of it. But if there's something that somebody desperately wants to send me, just get in touch and I will think about maybe reopening it. Bran Hall says, my first memory of Freddy Krueger was from my aunt or aunt. I say aunt. Do you say aunt? I say aunt. Aunt, maybe it depends on where you're from. From my aunt or aunt playing Dream Master when I was a kid. That was my favorite film in the franchise at that time. Well, that totally makes sense, Brad, because you were a little kid. Your aunt would put Dream Master on, and you were just like, wow, what is this? Wow, you know what I mean? Absolutely. I mean, listen, I used to watch Elm Street 2 a lot when I was a kid. And at the time I was watching Elm Street 1 and 2, those were the only Elm Street movies that existed. Again, I was born in 79. So when Freddy came, when Elm Street came out in 84, and then Elm Street 2 in 85, when I was watching Elm Street 1 and 2 on VHS in 85 and 86, those are the only two Freddy movies that existed. There was no part 3 or 4 or 5. And so I used to watch those movies a lot on repeat. And let's be honest, that's part of the reason, despite the fact that they do have the scariest, Freddy's, facts. They do have the best makeup, facts, right? Of course, Elm Street 1 is there's a lot of things in there that are true. But come on, nostalgia plays a big role in that for me as well. Absolutely it does, for sure. So, but for you, yeah, seeing, Dream Child on the you say Dream Child or Dream Master, excuse me. Seeing Dream Master on the TV, I mean, it was like, wow, you know? Yeah, totally get it. Totally get it. That's right, Evil Monsterism says, and you get access to Dave's OnlyFans with a membership as well. That is right, ladies and gentlemen. Access to my OnlyFans. Now, if you want that, of course, it's going to be about $7,500 a month. But hey, I mean, come on. I mean, let's get that. You know? I mean, guys, $7,500 a month, US. But I'm telling you, sounds like a motorbike. Jonathan Clancy, I'm spitting all over the place. Jonathan Clancy sends in another €5. Thank you, Jonathan. Says, in the late 80s in Ireland, we had a serious fear of Freddy. Ooh. I lived in a council estate and the fear was something amazing. That is so cool. You know, a different culture, a different part of the world. That's really cool. That's really cool. So, I mean, it was a big thing, right? I remember my dad was totally okay with me watching those movies. My mom was totally okay with me watching those movies. But funny enough, my parents divorced in about 83, 84, somewhere around there. So my recollection of childhood, like I don't really have any memories of my parents being together. I mean, I can see it in photographs and things like that. And thankfully, before my parents died in 2011, although they were not together for many years, they had a civil relationship and could, you know, when my dad would come into town, I would often go out to dinner with him and my mom and my dad, you know, whatever the case was, right? They were still very civil with each other and on good terms, which was very nice. But I have no recollection really of them being together. It's very, very vague because they divorced when I was like, 3 or 4. But funny enough, they both remarried later in life. And my stepdad despised the horror shit, despised Freddy. Like, I remember it being a real issue and a real problem for me in the 80s wanting to watch Freddy's Nightmares. And he was a dick. Like, I can say this. My mom would agree. My mom would agree right now. If she's, I don't know, she's up there somewhere in the cosmos looking down, she'd go, yeah, he was a dick. And he was a dick. He made it, he was just so melodramatic, about it. And I'm not saying that he was a horrible human being. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying about this, when you merge families together, blended families are tough, right? There's a budding of personalities, a budding of rules, and, it can be difficult. And over this one thing, he just, kids watching this garbage. I mean, Jesus. I mean, the shit that kids are watching now on TikTok. My God. And we thought this shit was awful in the 80s. But I remember watching Freddy's Nightmares when it was on, when it was actually on TV. And he was doing the dishes and he would like peek around the corner and be like, like he would just deliberately make it known that he was disapproving of this dog shit, and it's just like, shut the fuck up. Like, I mean, if you don't like it, just, anyways, I remember that being an issue. And then also my stepmom, that my dad remarried, or that my dad married, again, like I said, both my parents remarried later in life. My stepmom also despised it. My dad and mom didn't care. They knew that I wasn't going to take it literally and go off and become, Ted Bundy. I mean, and become the next serial killer. They knew that. But for whatever reason, my stepmom is I remember these movies. She hated it so much that I couldn't have these movies within eyesight of her. You can have those movies, but you just keep them in your bedroom. It's like, yeah, but all my movies are downstairs where the VCR is and where the TV is, and I want to keep all my movies. I don't have to always go up to my bedroom, get a movie, come down. I want to keep all my movies where nope, couldn't have it. I don't want to look at that filth, that goddamn filth. This is garbage. Look at this goddamn filth. Get it out of my face. You know what I mean? And of course, when you're with a blended family and you've got to, you know, you've got to pick your battles. You've got to pick your battles. And of course, your biological parent is always doing the balancing act and trying to, make things work. And, you got to compromise. Okay, you can watch Freddy's Dead, but you're not watching it in that room. You're not watching it on this floor. All that's kind of nonsense. And then that kind of shit, obviously went away as I became, that was really only when you could control me, right? When I'm like, 8. But when you're 18, you're 17, I'll watch whatever the fuck I want, and so it becomes, they softened a lot. And then, we kind of, it is what it is. But yeah, I remember that, but that's really cool, man. That's really cool. He was, yeah, it'd be very interesting. I always like learning about other cultures and other areas of the world and how certain things and certain properties and characters impact, that culture or that country or, whatever the case is. So that's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Okay. Let me just scroll over here. Did I get them all? I believe I've got them all. I just want to make sure I've got them all. All right, let's check in on that poll. Let's check in on the poll. 109 of you have voted, and the gap is closing a little bit, but I'm still kind of surprised. Now, to be fair, and most of you have probably already thought of this, I am doing a stream celebrating A Nightmare on Elm Street. So Fred heads and, Freddy fans are likely to be the most that are going to be tuning into this. And maybe most of the 150 people that are watching live right now is the, I get it. If I was doing a celebrating, I don't know, the 40th anniversary of Friday the 13th Part 4, which could be a good one to celebrate soon, then, and I do that poll, it might be reversed because of the fans that are watching. But nonetheless, 112 of you have voted. 56% say they prefer Freddy, and 44% of you say they prefer Jason Voorhees. Voorhees. Some of you probably don't even know what I'm talking about. Let me see here. Evil Monsterism says, that's some bullshit, Dave. I'm sorry you had to go through. But you know what? Look, it was the times, man. I know you're 24 or whatever, right? So it was a different time, a different era. It's not like it was today. It's not like it is now. That doesn't mean that there weren't parents that didn't care or, but that wasn't uncommon. That wasn't, it wasn't uncommon. Learn about certain things in the 80s and Jesus, AC/DC was accused of being devil worshippers and the acronym AC/DC was accused of, there were people that truly believed that AC/DC stood for Antichrist Devil's Children. I'm not kidding. And of course, if you know your history, it stands for alternating current, direct current. Right? Because Angus Young's sister got the idea of the name off of the back of a sewing machine. But that's true. And because it was new, right? Young kids watching that kind of material, although a lot of us did do that, I can't sit here and say that it was just the norm. Not at all. That it was just socially accepted and completely normal. Not at all. Not at all. Some people dealt with it better than others, and some people were more, melodramatic over it than others. But it's not like all my friends were like watching this stuff and every parent was totally okay with it. It was new. And the effects may be dated now, but the effects weren't dated then, that was the quality. That was legit. That was just how it was. And so it wasn't unprecedented for parents to be kind of like, what's going on with Freddy? And I'm not allowing my kid to watch this Freddy Krueger nonsense. That doesn't mean all parents were like that, but it wasn't unprecedented to hear things, like that. I mean, it was, I don't know why I used the AC/DC analogy. For some reason, it popped into my head. But you know what I'm trying to say. So it wasn't uncommon. You just kind of dealt with it. And then as I think what's happened really, unless you are extremely religious, I think what eventually has happened because of the expansion of technology, and certainly because of the internet, because, when this shit was happening, there was no internet. There's no social media. So I think because of the internet and because of social media, parents are trying very hard to keep tabs on their kids and what they're watching and what they're getting into and all that kind of stuff. But in a lot of ways, it's a losing battle, and kids today are exposed to way more stuff and crazy real life shit than we ever were in the 80s. I mean, I wasn't watching beheading videos. I couldn't just type in beheading video, enter, and there's a beheading video of some actual soldier getting his head literally sawed off in real time from some crazy Islamic terrorist. Like, I mean, what the hell? What the fuck is going on? I mean, that's where we are today. Like, literally, we can bring that up right here on YouTube if I wanted to. Not on YouTube. I could show you from another site on YouTube. Could show you that in 15 seconds? Do you know what I mean? It's crazy. That shit didn't. Not at all. It was a very different time. Very different time. So basically, the point I'm trying to make is that yes, it was disappointing. It is relative. I like to remind people of that. So that is true. It is relative, of course. It was frustrating. It was annoying. It's like, I'm not going to become a serial killer because I'm into Freddy Krueger, but hey, it was a different time, right? Now, very different world. Very, very different world. But thankfully, my parents were chill with it. You know what I mean? And they were like, nah, whatever. Fuck it. Well, and I remember too, this is funny. I remember too, my stepmother, this would have been 91 or 92, 90, 91. I remember wanting to rent Halloween 2. And she said, well, is there blood in it? And I said, well, I'm going to watch it with you and there better not be blood in it. I remember her saying that. And then I remember going, okay, fine. I'm not going to rent it because I knew because there is blood in it. And I knew you know what I mean? I remember that. That was frustrating. I had a very frustrating relationship with my step-parents. I'll just say that. We'll leave it there. But thankfully, like I said, I did have my biological parents were totally fine with it. And I did not grow up to become a serial killer. Yet. Can you imagine? All right, Lee the Machine Bowers sends in another super chat going right into that pate. Thank you, Lee. Says, my mom introduced me to Halloween when I was very young, and my uncle worked at a youth center a long time ago, and he introduced me to A Nightmare on Elm Street. Horror has been in my childhood since I was 4. Really cool. Thanks for sharing that, Lee. I really appreciate that. Yeah, listen, I mean, horror has been in, well, I mean, usually when you talk to, us horror fans, right? It's been in our blood for a long time. And, if you are, in your 40s, you got into it probably because, well, that's just what horror was at that time, right? Now for me, because I was born in 79 and I was 5 when the original Elm Street was released. I'm 5, so I'm old enough to be aware of, what's happening, but still too young to, probably discovered on my own. So I relied on my older brothers, right? My brother Bob and my brother Neil and my sister Jill. And it was my brother Neil, really, that introduced me to horror. And, I was very thankful for that. Now, I mean, if you're quite young, if you're in your teens now and in your 20s, it's probably a parent that has introduced you to or a brother, or maybe an older brother, but I would say it's probably your mom or dad that got you into it. Or to be fair, because of the internet and because of social media, it could just be you're just into the horror genre and you've connected and discovered Elm Street and Halloween and Friday just by being connected to us older people, through social media, through YouTube shows and through Facebook pages and just being a part of the community. You know what I'm saying? And like, what is this? So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that could be sort of a reason there as well. But look, if I had kids, I don't. But if I did have kids, there is no doubt that my kids would be horror fans, and I'd be getting them into it quite young, folks. I'd be setting up, oh yeah, we're gonna watch it on VHS. What's VHS? Shut up, sit down, and watch. We're gonna watch it on this. What the hell is this? No allowance for you. I totally would do that too. I'd make them watch it on VHS. That'd be fun. All right, we got 5 minutes left in the show, folks. 5 minutes left in the show today. We're going to take this thing to 2 hours. The poll, what's going on with the poll? Hey, the poll, 126 of you have voted. 53% say they prefer Freddy, and 47% say they prefer Jason. So again, the gap is closing. It's not quite as far apart as it was earlier. It's closing. We'll see where it is at the end of the show in the next 5 minutes. Let me see here. Alley Girl says, I grew up with older boy cousins who introduced me to horror when I was 7 and have been hooked ever since. Amazing. Oh, my thumb was down when I did that. I meant to do this. My thumb, what the hell is this? Amazing. Wait. It's a little stiff. My apologies. Amazing. That's really cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Edward Nito, my Godzilla brother from another mother, sends in $10. Thank you, Edward, one of our great members here on the channel as well. Says, Dave, just tuning in. So my copy of G85, that's Godzilla 85 for those of you who don't know, is scratched. Oh no! But get this, the movie is on YouTube. G-1 has shed more eyes on our favorite monster. I hope all is well. Cheers, my friend. Thank you, Edward. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate you. But it is on YouTube. Is this it's scratched? Is this the copy you ordered from that was it from that guy in Poland? Is it that guy? Or is this another way that you were able to get Godzilla 85 on, I actually have a bootlegged copy of Godzilla 85 full HD. You actually cannot get Godzilla 85 even on DVD. You can get the Japanese original Godzilla 84 or the Return of Godzilla. You can get that on DVD. But the American version of that, which is Godzilla 1985, you can't get that on DVD or Blu-ray, only VHS. And I was able to find a guy through eBay, I think he was in Poland or Germany, this is a few years ago now, who had Godzilla 85 full Blu-ray transfer. I'm like, how the hell did he do that? Amazing. So I bought it from him and I took the risk. I bought him, like, what the hell, I'll buy it. He shipped it over and I watched it and I'm like, this fucking looks incredible. I'm like, holy shit. I don't know how he did it, but it looks fucking amazing. So, and I've only watched it once. So my disc is still good, but damn, don't you hate when that happens? But yes, Godzilla -1. I still have to watch Godzilla -1. I just haven't had a chance to see it. I want to see it. I'm excited to see it. I have to see it. I definitely have to see it. All right, let's see here. Edward says, nah, this was something I got from a Godzilla con in Pasadena. Oh, okay. I need to get the one you got. Sounds like a good deal. Yeah. You know what? I don't know how many people are doing it now, but well, hang on a second. You know what? Hang on. I'll be right back and I'll show you. I'll be right back and I'll show you. Hang on 1 second. Be right back, folks. Be right back. Okay, sorry about that, folks. I didn't realize, I went over to where all my Blu-rays are, and I didn't realize that it's not readily available. It's in like a cabinet, and I'm just like, for the sake of, I felt the pressure because, you know, I'm live. So, you know what, for the sake of time, I'll look for it after the show and then have it ready, you know, for the next show or something like that, or reach out to me and I'll send you sort of a picture of what it looks like. But yeah, no, it was really cool. I wish that the cover was the 85 cover. It's not. It's kind of like a stylized version. The back is really cool though. The artwork's cool. It's still cool and it's still the movie. I just wish that the box would have been the proper art. I guess I could always make it and print it and put it in there. Sorry about that though. Yeah, no, I didn't, for some reason I thought it was like right there, but it's not. I have to go digging for it and I'm live and I don't have time to do that. So my apologies. Lee the Machine Bowers, another super chat. Lee just going hard into the paint. Sends in $9.99 and says, my mom didn't mind me watching horror movies, but if a sex or nudity scene came up, I always covered my eyes. But I always peeked. Oh, we all did. We all did, Lee. We all did. We all did, of course. All right, where are we? Okay, we're at the 2-hour mark. Let's check the final results of this poll here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's end the poll here. The final results of the poll are, do you prefer Jason or Freddy? 134 of you voted, a nice sample size. 53% say they prefer Freddy, and 46% say they prefer Jason Voorhees. So there you have it. I mean, maybe not all that surprising considering this is a stream celebrating A Nightmare on Elm Street. Folks, that is going to do it for this episode of McRae Live, episode 245. I want to thank you for tuning in today. I want to thank my channel members, of course, for being members here on the channel. I want to thank all the super chats that came in today. I really appreciate them. I want to thank my moderators, of course, Frank Riker, Tabitha Short, Darren Sands, Chris Baber, Cody Snyder, and Andrew Stevens. Thank you for doing what you do. I really appreciate it. And thank you for tuning in and watching. And jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger turning 40 years old this year. It's hard to believe. One of the icons, one of the titans, one of the greats, turning 40 years old this year. Tell me your memories. Tell me when you first got into him. Fond memories of meeting, Robert Englund maybe, or meeting Heather Langenkamp, or just memories from the Elm Street franchise. Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Just start spreading the love down there, celebrating Freddy Krueger and A Nightmare on Elm Street. Oh, Lee, my man. Lee sends in another one. You son of a... Lee says, this is Dave McRae signing off. That's right. Dave McRae signing off. Thank you, Lee. Really appreciate your support to the channel. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, folks, this has been a great show. A lot of fun today. A really nice show. Really enjoyed this episode. And I will be back soon. Again, if you want to become a channel member and kind of take part in some exclusive perks only to channel members, check out that join button and see if something interests you there. A lot of fun that we and the members have over in the exclusive area. The snobby area. But check it out if you are interested in that. And again, level number 2 members, just a reminder, this Friday night, our next episode of Horror Movie Nights, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're watching Thanksgiving. Watch along with me because it's free on Netflix. So I think that'll be a lot of fun to check that out and get our thoughts on this movie. All right, folks, have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I will talk to you all soon. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you soon. Cheers.